Good afternoon, everyone. 4:30 Eastern Time on a Monday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We've got about an hour plus to play with on this Monday, the 3rd of November, 2025. As always, get connected with me on IG, on X, on the YouTube channel, SR1029 FM. The game, very easy to get social as well, at Rich Q on Q, and of course, TikTok Rich Q on the mic. And if you are a first-time viewer and or listener to the show, we love to call a Monday a Man Up Monday, but we always add a little caveat to that. It is a lunes Manolo Mentiroso plus Locador de Radio Man Up Monday. We're calling out the BS takes, picks, and opinions from over the weekend, and we lay it to shame on a Monday as we already say hello to the month of November. And for some teams, your NFL season is over. Period. Stop. That's all she wrote. We saw it again over the weekend in the NFL. Just when we think we can figure out this league, we can't. A lot of NFL. Lloyd Vance at 5:15. What a World Series. What an absolute, listen, I thought it was going to go 5. I love the Dodgers in the series. The World Series was ridiculously compelling. We get a game 7. We had drama from the 6th. We had drama from the 5th to 6th, game 7. We're definitely going to talk a little baseball. The ratings outstanding, through the roof for the World Series. We will definitely get your thoughts on what transpired in the World Series. And there were probably about 9 or 10 certain plays, wacky, goofy plays that transpired over a 3-game stretch. But man, if you are the Toronto Blue Jays, I got to tell you, you are just, I don't even know if half of you guys woke up on a Monday. Maybe we should just wake you in April. So we'll mix in a little baseball. I got some thoughts on the drama that was game 6 and game 7, and a little, I guess you can say, throwing a little shade at Toronto because, quite frankly, I thought some of those games were mismanaged by Schneider, and then you got to give a lot of credit to Dave Roberts and the Dodgers, and they win it again back to back, certainly a dynasty. So we'll get into the baseball as well, but you got to start with the NFL. And a couple of things that I took away from this past weekend. I feel as though we say this every single solitary season. I feel as though we say this every single solitary weekend in the NFL. It is a week-to-week proposition. It is a week-to-week proposition in the NFL. Just when we think we figure it out, we have no idea what the hell's going on. None. None. We just don't. You know, Daniel Jones kind of reverted back to his bad ways, and the Colts lose against Pittsburgh. Green Bay shocked by Carolina. Carolina playing with a little feistiness and heart, right? The Patriots, Drake May just, putting on those big boy pants, trending up when we're talking about the MVP. I thought Stafford played exceptionally well for the Rams. Sam Darnold, slinging Sammy friggin' Darnold with a unbelievable effort last night. Seattle crushes Washington. We'll get into the Commanders in a moment. The Bills over Kansas City. Just when we thought Kansas City was starting to make that move, you get the Bills kind of humbling them and just being a little more physical. And of course, Allen showing you why he's the league's reigning MVP. And then you had pretty much the crap of the weekend, including what transpired between the Bears and Cincinnati in a wacky, wild game. Defense was beyond rare in that one. I mean, probably one of the most bizarre endings aside from what transpired a couple weeks ago between the Denver Broncos and New York Giants. And then, oh, by the way, speaking of which, my New York football Giants, once again, just deciding to not even friggin' show up. To not even show up. But I'll get to the Giants in a moment. I'll get to the MVP conversation, the MVP race in the NFL. Detroit taking a little step back. But I do have to start with last night and Washington, because Washington was the team, obviously, I had coming out of the NFC, and they not only got manhandled by Seattle last night, and Sam Darnold was brilliant. He could have thrown 6 touchdown passes. Seattle wins at 38-14, but obviously what comes out in that game is the fact that, once again, the Washington Commanders lose their franchise quarterback, Jayden Daniels. And I'll say this, man, you cannot, if you think about this, if you are the Washington Commanders and you have a franchise quarterback in Jayden Daniels, who you already know is an injury prone quarterback, it is absolute malpractice by that coaching staff and Dan Quinn to have this kid out there down 38-7 in a game that was over. That was absolutely over. And you have this kid out there, and then you've got the balls, the audacity after he fractures his arm, his elbow, which, I mean, the injury itself was just horrible. Just absolutely horrible to watch. Same spot, same area, same team that RG3 got hurt. And that's good that the x-rays come back negative, but it was a gruesome injury. But again, under no circumstances should he have been out there. And this is not Monday morning quarterbacking. This is just common sense 101 in the NFL. Common sense. The game's over. Seattle's got one of the best defenses in the NFL. Seattle's got one of the best rush defenses. They have edge rushers and pass rushers and linebackers. They get to the quarterback. It's a 38-7 frigging game midway through the fourth. The game is over. It's over. And you have this kid out there. And I don't care what the design call was. I don't. You watch the replay. Yeah, he ran out to his right. He was flung to the ground by the linebacker, Thomas. And then, boom, all of a sudden, the awkward landing. And Dan Quinn can sit there and tell you all he wants. Well, obviously, it's not the play that we called. But that's malpractice. Absolute malpractice. You would actually, if God forbid, if this kid tore a ligament or he was out for the season or potentially a career-threatening injury, that's a fireable friggin' offense, period. It's a fireable offense. It really is. And now in hindsight, I kept him out there too long. You finally have a franchise quarterback, man. And now, listen, their season is shot to shit. So my prediction of Washington coming out of the NFC, put it in the books. I'm man up right now. They're cooked. For those that always get on me for saying that, they're friggin' done. They're done. So you had a dream rookie season by this team, a team that came out of nowhere. You go all the way to NFC Championship game against Philadelphia Eagles, where you're overwhelmed and overmatched, and yet you go on the road and you beat the Detroit Lions, and then you go and play the Eagles, a team that you beat during the regular season. You couldn't just go punch for punch with them, but you showed you're an ascending team. You're an ascending team. It just hasn't been their season. They're losing players left and right, by the way, with injuries. They're 3-6. It's a stacked NFC. Forget about it. It's pretty much all she wrote. Forget about, they're done. They're cooked. But if you're a Commanders fan today, how in the world do you not sit there and just absolutely get on this, man, and say, what the hell are you thinking? What are you doing? You got a franchise quarterback. You got a shiny toy. And you send him out there. And I don't want to hear this crap about reps. Or we're sending everyone and their mother knew the game's over, man. You live to fight another day. It's okay to raise the white flag. You're protecting your franchise quarterback, your meal ticket, you jackass. And you keep him out there? I'm telling you, man, the stupidity of some of these head coaches, it runs rampant in the NFL. It runs rampant. And it's interesting enough, too, because now we got a situation with the deadline tomorrow in the NFL, and you already see the Eagles making some moves, obviously. Jerry Jones claiming they are going to make some moves. They are going to make some moves. Miami making some moves, selling off a little bit. Who knows what the Jets and the Giants are going to do? I've gotten to the point right now where I'm so, what's the word I'm looking for? Or the phrase or the combination of the two. It's as though it's deja vu for me. It's deja vu for me. It really is. It's deja vu for me because I'm at the point right now where I'm watching the same crap happen week in and week out. It's the same crap. It is. It's the same crap I have watched for years with the New York Football Giants. And after a while, you sit there and you say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Like now, it's insanity. It is. It borders on insanity if you are a fan. It really does. Because you have to take a step back and you have to just, when your franchise is not good, and there are several really bad franchises in the NFL, and you watch the same crap for years, as a fan, it's like an addiction, but borderline like a mental illness. And I'm not making light of it, but it is insanity because you think something's going to change. It really does. It borders on insanity to actually think it would be different. It won't. It won't. It never will. And that's the problem. And by the way, you're seeing it with multiple franchises. Now, I can only speak on how inept the Giants are, how inept the coaching staff is, how inept the GM is, how inept the players are. And you just get to this point where you're like, enough is enough. I just don't even give a shit anymore. It's not even an enjoyable product to watch. 2-7, 2-7, 2-7, 3-7, 3-8, 4-9, 5-11. Like, enough. How in the world do you watch that game yesterday? And you watch Jackson Dart, who, by the way, I'm in love with this kid. I'm giddy. This kid's a man. He can play. And he's dropping passes all over the place, and Slayton can't catch a friggin' cold. Theo Johnson's giving me Evan Ingram vibes. Offensive line, is trying to, give this kid a couple of seconds to throw the football. You can't even run the football against a bad team against a run in the 49ers, who, oh, by the way, have so many injuries, but you can't exploit that. You got a Mac Jones quarterback that is not fleet of foot, and you can't get to him. You got guys making business decisions once again, because that's what happens. Once again, you have players that decide we are going to make business decisions. And you can't have that. When a player or players start to do the Matador, the Chichi Rodriguez, the Olay, and they're just basically not tackling, they're not engaged. Carl Banks was right about Dexter Lawrence. What a friggin' dog he is. I don't care if you stink. I don't care if you lose. But Jesus God, you got to give me friggin' effort. Fake it. Like, go out and try to tackle. Make a play. They don't even want to do that. And the worst thing about, yesterday and then, going back and watching the game today, you got to have a silent count in your own friggin' building because it's overrun by 49ers fans? Are you kidding me? It's friggin' November. 7, 8, 9 games into the season. And you're overrun by 49ers fans? You got to go silent count in your own friggin' building? That's embarrassing. I've said this for years. When you've got fans leaving a stadium in the third quarter, when you've got the opposition overrunning the home fan base, taking over home stadiums of the opposition, and you're blown out, or you're getting blown out by 17, 21, 24 friggin' points at the end of the third, and fans are deciding we want to hit the Parkway or the Expressway or the Turnpike to beat the friggin' traffic, that's when you have to clean house. Period. That's when you have to clean house. To allow this man to keep coaching Brian Daboll, to have this defensive coordinator still out there, it's maddening. It's insanity. And fan bases deserve better than that. They deserve better than that. You can't expect fans to be loyal when you keep doing the same shit every single year, every single week, and you expect a different result. Is that not the definition of insanity? I mean, let's call it for what it is. You've got a stud legit franchise quarterback that's dropping dimes all over the place, and players can't catch. Slayton's a bum. He's a dog. Theo Johnson, either it's a 5 yard hitch and he's good to go. Other than that, he can't catch a cold. You got defensive players quitting. It's maddening. It's so frustrating because trust me, I bet you they're looking around these other fan bases and they're saying, what the hell's going on in Cincinnati? What the hell's going on in Washington? What the hell's going on in New Orleans? What the hell's going on with the Raiders? It's putrid. It's bad. It's embarrassing. And it's almost as though ownership at times, they take the fans for clowns. Like, we don't know what the hell we're watching. The film doesn't lie. When you've got players doing the matador defense, when you have players that are not willing to engage and tackle, that tells you right there they have quit. Coaches coach, players play, yes. But you got a GM that failed to address a lot of needs, and I'm a little torn with the GM because he had some hits and he had some misses. You don't go out and get depth with a kicker. That's embarrassing. You don't get another wide receiver. That's embarrassing. You drafted a kid that doesn't even touch the football field. That's embarrassing. But you have a head coach that I fear is going to stunt the growth of a franchise quarterback in Jackson Dart. And this kid just makes friggin' plays, man. He just makes plays. I'm going to tell you when I said to myself, get rid of these guys. I'm watching the game today, and the Giants get a turnover. I went back watching it. The Giants get a turnover, and you're like, okay, maybe they can make this somewhat of a game, right? The defense kind of wakes up a little bit. You have an opportunity. You missed a friggin' fumble. You get the fumble, I should say. It's 17-7. And what do you promptly do? Incompletion, and then you missed a kick. 4th and 10 from the 27. Okay, it happens. It's the NFL. I'm not going to go crazy. Not a problem. Where I'm going to go crazy is the play calling prior to missing the kick. You can't pick up a couple yards. You can't pick up 10 yards. You can't move the sticks. You can't have an opportunity to go in the end zone. Okay, fine. Okay. Now it's a 20-7 game. And again, you go by the math and the analytics. But now you've got a 4th and goal from the 49er 3. Let me see what this kid can do in a lost season of 2-6. In a lost season where you don't win a lot of games at home. In a lost season where you believe you got a playmaker under center and a franchise quarterback that can move around with his legs, that can buy some time, that's tough. That's tough. Will take hits. What does the head coach decide to do? Kick the field goal. Why? Because he wants to play the friggin' numbers game. That's what he wants to do. We kick a field goal. It's a 2-score game. To me, that tells me everything I already need to know about this guy who's friggin' gutless. He's a gutless, clueless head coach. And he needs to go. He needs to go. The coordinators, they need to go. I'm still on the GM. You look around the NFL, I mean, we're seeing this on a weekly basis. You don't think they're having this conversation in DC about Dan Quinn already? You don't think they're having this conversation in Cincinnati with Taylor? Explain to me what the hell happened yesterday in that Bears and Cincinnati game. Joe Flacco, who you dusted off a couple weeks ago, is throwing for close to 500 friggin' yards. I mean, Cincinnati, make a friggin' play late defensively, can you? In a game that the Bears had no business winning. And you can almost make the case that Cincinnati didn't. And Flacco throws for 470. 470 yards. I think Boomer Esiason threw for over 500 for Cincinnati. 5 and some change is their franchise record for passing yards in a game. And you can't make a stop late. You have Matador defense. When they watch that film tomorrow and Wednesday, You better chew out some of these defensive players, but also head coach. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Listen, this is where we're at with the NFL. What we saw yesterday, we started to really separate the teams, right? I'm not going to get on Daniel Jones. I'm not going to sit there and say, here we go, the pumpkin, Halloween. Daniel Jones had a bad game, but I saw that deer in the headlights look from Daniel Jones that I'm so familiar with. So the Colts come back down to life a little bit. That happens. Detroit Lions stub their toe. That happens. Green Bay, I would worry about a little bit now because you also lost your stud tight end. And that's a bad loss against Carolina. Kansas City, they were complaining about some of the bad calls yesterday. Hey, man, listen, once in a while, some of the calls don't have to always favor Kansas City, but you pretty much, this is where the rubber has met the road in the NFL. But I just can't take bad coaching and I can't take lack of effort. I can't. Let's open it up. On a Monday, Q, I consider you a very knowledgeable sports pundit. Who in the NFC front runner to be in the Super Bowl? Who is the NFC? Let me hear you say it. Front runner? Well, I mean, obviously, if you're going by, are we going by what transpired yesterday? I'll tell you this, and you don't want to hear this. The Rams and Seattle can go into Philadelphia and they can beat the Eagles. I mean, I'm sorry. They can. They can. Now, you want to sit there and tell me you don't trust Sam Darnold in the playoffs? That doesn't mean he's not. That doesn't mean he has not turned out to be a very legit pro quarterback in the NFL. How he's going to make his moves, right? That's what the Eagles do. So they turn around, they get the kid Jalen Phillips, they make their moves, they strengthen their defense, right? Because that's what they do. They brought in Michael Carter, Jair Alexander, who knows if the kid can play anymore. But they're saying we're all in. This is why the conversation of trading 3 first-round draft picks for Myles Garrett is absolutely asinine. Because what the Eagles look for is sustainability. This is not a one-hit wonder. They want to get back to the Super Bowl. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you right now that they're the front runner because they had a bye week and all these other teams beat each other up. The Detroit Lions slipped up. It happens sometimes in the NFL. Right? It happens sometimes in the NFL. Teams have off weeks. The Eagles had an off week against the Giants, who were more physical than them that first win a couple weeks ago on a Thursday night. What we saw yesterday in that Detroit game in Minnesota, we saw a young quarterback making some plays. We saw Minnesota run the football with a semblance of success, and the Lions were just out of rhythm offensively. It happens. It happens. Minnesota did a great job yesterday getting pressure on Jared Goff. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're a bad football team. I love what the Rams are doing. I mean, Stafford right now, stick him as front runner of MVP. Now, you want to sit there and say, well, look who they beat. It doesn't matter. That game was over at the half. You step on bad teams. That's what you do. And then Seattle last night, they put up 38 on the road, and Darnold quietly is having a fantastic season, and Seattle gets to the quarterback. So right now, to kind of answer your question in short, I would throw all those teams up there. Eagles, because they're defending Super Bowl champs, they strengthen their defense. It looks like they got the ground game on that offense going a little bit. I still have question marks about their secondary. Okay. Detroit stubbed their toe. Okay. That's fine. But again, listen, it's the NFL. Things change. Injuries can happen, man. If the Eagles go out and lose on Monday night to Green Bay, you're going to sit there on a Tuesday and tell me they're still the front runner? Come on. Come on. Just stop. That NFC is stacked, man. It's stacked. New phone to this. Q in a week where teams we thought should win didn't. I will man up and say ugly win for my Jags, but a win is a win is a win. That's all you're worried about in the NFL. It doesn't matter how you get it done. It does not have to look pretty. I mean, I'll say this about Jacksonville. You got to give them credit in this regard. There were some moments in that game where Lawrence looked, we start to looking a little shaky, but then he turned around and he rebounded because he made some plays with his legs. And you know what? Credit to the Raiders in this regard. The Raiders decide we're 2-5. We're not going anywhere. Let's try to win it. I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't. But that's Pete Carroll. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. He might have a little buyer's remorse because they're not a good team. That tight end's exceptional. And Geno had actually a good Geno game. But credit Jacksonville because, those are gut check types of wins. They are. They don't have to be pretty. They don't. Fans are calling for Dan Quinn's head down here in the DMV. They should. They should. And it's not an overreaction on a Monday. It's not. You cannot defend. You can't. You cannot defend having a franchise quarterback who's already prone to injuries in a game that he's been sacked and harassed and hit, in a game that the outcome's already decided, in a game where you're down 31 friggin' points and you got to live to fight another day. And then you're going to walk it back and say, well, it wasn't a design run like that. I mean, really? I would be going absolutely. And listen, there's some play calls that are design runs for Jackson Dart that I just cringe because the way the kid plays, he's going to get hurt. But that's also on the play calling. So again, this is just Dan Quinn showed you right now that he's what he's close to doing is losing that locker room. He's close to losing the locker room. That kid's done for the rest of the season. He's out indefinitely. He's out indefinitely. Don't even worry about him taking it's Mariota going forward. And like I said, you can sit there and kind of walk it back, but you gotta know better. You gotta know better, man. That franchise has gone through that with gruesome injuries, from Theismann on Monday night to RG3, that you thought was a franchise quarterback, to now who you believe and know is a franchise quarterback in Jayden Daniels. He should be crushed. Then you also lose what? McCaffrey to a broken collarbone. You lose Lattimore to a torn ACL. I mean, these injuries are utterly ridiculous. Like, it's a waiting game for everyone. Just cook. I'm cooking Washington right now. They're done. They're done. Get them out of the freaking NFC for my Super Bowl predictions. I got to keep it in lock, stick, and barrel with Bo Nix in Denver, who, oh, by the way, I'm still not 100% they can make a run out of the AFC, and that's because of the head coach. And the quarterback at times is a little iffy. Let me man up. Also say, what a World Series. Not much of a baseball guy, but that was the best series I've seen in my lifetime, hands down. Back-to-back great finishes. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're going to talk a little more about that, but fantastic World Series. Fantastic. Man, how are you? Congratulations on your win, Corporation 49ers, as they should de facto. Talking about Dan Quinn, 100%. Q, it's getting nasty here in Boulder for Dion. I don't think he comes back in 2026. Hey, you guys got on me when I mentioned that. You guys got on me when I mentioned that. When I said, oh, maybe, hey, kind of tongue in cheek, here we go. Maybe Dion doesn't return. Maybe he's on the hot seat. Who knows? It's getting pretty bad. I know he basically told the kids not to talk to the media afterwards, right? You got to win, man. First drive was excellent. I'm not sure what we're talking about. We're talking about the 49ers, maybe Jackson Dart and the Giants. Who knows? I think it's safe to say Flacco's 470 confirms Kevin Stefanski has no earthly clue what the hell he's doing. Tried to ruin Baker, did ruin Deshaun, and is trying to ruin Sanders. Well, what I don't hear, where's Gabriel's name in that one? Since Gabriel's getting all the reps and Sanders is not. Deshaun Watson stinks. He was damaged goods when he came over. I mean, I'm over Deshaun Watson. Flacco's numbers. I mean, this guy's throwing for what, 1,200 yards. He's on an all-time heater right now with Cincinnati. An all-time heater. We've seen that when guys have kind of. I remember when Boomer Esiason played his final couple games with the Cardinals and threw for like 1,500 yards in like 3 games. It was ridiculous. I mean, he was just like back-to-back 500-yard games. Remember, they beat the Eagles. They had that crazy win. I think it was in overtime. He went off, right? G-Man chimes in, Q, 100% correct on Dable. He's going to ruin Jackson Dart. Look what happened to Josh Allen when Dable left. Look what's happening with Daniel Jones once Dable leaves. Daniel Jones, different scenario. I think it's an indictment on the coach. I really do. I think it's an indictment on the coach. And there's no rhyme or reason to what he's doing, but I'll say it again. You've got players quitting. And I've always maintained this for years. I don't care what fan of a team you support. I don't care. But when you have the opposition overrun the stadium and you have fans leaving the stadium in the third quarter or booing at the half or just deciding we're going to sell our tickets, we're not going to show up, you can fly all the planes over stadiums all you want. At the end of the day, the owner has to take stock and also be held accountable because he signed off on these hires. Now, I know John Mara's going through it with the cancer and everything and wishing him well. But from a football standpoint, this is one of the reasons I did not want Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll to come back. They were lame duck head coach GM. And it's pretty obvious that this kid can friggin' play football. He can play the quarterback position. You got to bring in, listen, Miami fires Mike McDaniel, bring him as an OC. Try to pry away Flores as defensive coordinator. Then you go out and you figure out what the hell you're going to do as far as a head coach. But I just can't take it I can't take it anymore with this nonsense. And, I know like a lot of guys that have chimed in regarding like Barry and Stefanski in Cleveland. I'm not really as high on them as others are. The Gruden thing, he's having fun with Barstool. Remember, soon the NFL and the Raiders and those emails linked. I don't see that happening, even though he just salivates over Dart. I don't even know who a coaching candidate would be. And I hate to even talk about it because the guy still has a job. He's employed. But the fact that he hasn't fired defensive coordinator is laughable. It's laughable. You can't. This is Giants we're talking about. This is the Giants. It was a proud franchise. And fans should not have to go through seasons where the team's done by October, by Halloween. You shouldn't. Shermer, Judge, or McAdoo, Shermer, Judge. Now Dayball. It's a spinning circus. It's insanity. It is insanity. And I can't take it. I can't because it's bad football, but when guys quit, that's the worst. That's the worst. Anyone knows when players start to quit, the head coach, it's on you. It's on you, man. You got to get these players to play. I remember when Chip Kelly was basically, almost buying his time with the Eagles, which was the debacle, which I said at the time, I didn't think it was going to last 3 to 4 years in the NFL. And I remember the Eagles had a string of games, and I don't remember the order, but they lost to like Detroit, Tampa, and Miami, like 2 out of 3 at home. They were non-competitive, and you just saw a beaten down Chip Kelly. No energy, no bravado, no ego. I never liked Chip Kelly. I always thought he was a frigging jerk. I thought he was a clown. I thought he was condescending. And I remember at the time coming on after one of those losses, and I'm like, guys have quit. Guys have checked out. And when you check out, it shows up on film. And when you quit, that tells me the head coach, he's in over his head. Period. He is in over his head, and he's got no answers. And listen, we saw that yesterday in the NFL. We saw it yesterday. There's some bad head coaching in the NFL. Some teams are actually winning in spite of bad coaching. Zach Taylor, yeah, you got your Cincinnati team to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. The defense is atrocious. How do you explain that loss yesterday? You got a quarterback that threw for 470 yards. 470 yards and 4 touchdowns. And yet, defensively, the run defense, an abomination. It was an abomination. They gave up 283 yards on the ground. Caleb Williams looked like, you know, I can't even name great Bears quarterbacks, but whatever. Sid Luckman, I don't know, threw for close to 300 yards, flawless yesterday. Played really well. Almost 600 yards of offense you allow in an NFL game? I mean, how, these guys aren't going to last. These guys are not going to last, period. They're not. Premier League chimes in, Q, it's pretty much time to clean effing house. Yeah. It's time. It's time. I like I said, I don't want this head coach and I don't want this GM making moves if he's not going to come back. If they're going to get rid of this GM, don't make moves with the trade deadline right around the corner. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with that nonsense. I don't. Johnny Boy chimes in, Q, how do you account for the rash of injuries? I mean, look, teams injuries are bad in the NFL, and I feel as though there have been some really bad injuries. But here's another thing that bothers me, and I'll man up on this. You know, I was of the belief that the 49ers, for all these years, had great talent, and they couldn't get over that hump because of the head coach. Now, they've had so many injuries. I feel like the 49ers and the Ravens and the Giants, more or less the 49ers and the Ravens over the last 3, 4, 5 years, lose player after player after player. And I'm talking about impact players. I'm talking about all pro, all world level players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And yet, Kyle Shanahan has these guys playing. And they're winning football games. Now, I sat there and said, hey, you might want to turn around and put this guy on the hot seat. I was dead wrong. He's a hell of a head coach. He's a hell of a head coach. They just can never stay healthy. Period. You go back to those playoff games against the Eagles, never healthy. Losing quarterbacks, losing players, losing running backs, losing linebackers, defensive ends, tackles. You name it. These guys go down. But yet, here's a team that's going to make the playoffs. In spite of that, they're 6-3. With all that being said, they're 6-3. I mean, that's a hell of a coaching job, man. They just lost another defensive, I think, lineman. The kid Williams tore his ACL. So I don't want to hear injuries. I don't want to hear this anymore because you've got other teams that are dealing with injuries. I don't want to hear from Giant fans sitting there saying, well, Scatterboo and losing Malik Neighbors. I don't care. You have to step up. And depth is provided by what? What the GM does. You know, maybe there's something to be said about Gettleman, who I basically just clowned, and maybe there's something to say about Wink, who was talking about Banks being a tough player. This kid, he's got no toughness to him. He's out of place, out of position all over the place. Maybe, again, it's coaching. But we take it for granted in the NFL. We always take it for granted in the NFL with coaching. Like, you know, they'll figure it out. They're good enough to win. Well, you're not to some extent. You're really not. And you know what's crazy? Here's another thing that really bothers me. The Jets drafted Sam Darnold. They gave up on Sam Darnold, who was 23. Sam Darnold right now, you can make a case as the NFL MVP. Cleveland gave up on Baker. He's cashing in, big time contract, going to be an all pro again, really turn his career around, top 10 quarterback. The Giants decide we're going to jettison Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is having a career year. Now, again, I will preface it by saying this. I thought, is it possible that some of these guys can't succeed in New York? Is it possible the pressure of the media, it's too much? I don't know. But my point is it also possible that those evaluating said talent have no idea what the hell they're doing. And we give up on these players so fast. The Jets had Sam Darnold. The Jets could have drafted Jackson Dart. Now the Jets are trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do, who's going to quarterback next week. I mean, Jackson Dart will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. The kid's having a phenomenal season. And look at the roster. He's putting the ball in perfect places and guys can't friggin' catch. Will you bail out your quarterback? I'm watching that Cincinnati, those highlights, and those wide receivers want the football. They go out and they grab the football. They're dogs. AJ Brown, Smith, they're dogs. They want the football. They go out and get it. Jefferson, give me the effing ball like a bone. These guys don't. They wait for the ball to hit them in the hands. It's just bad football, man. It really is. Matt chimes in Q. Love the love for Sam Darnold. I agree with you. Quinn should be fired, but Sam Darnold definitely in the MVP conversation. Question is Q. Can he keep this pace up, especially come playoff time? But that's major question. That is the major question with Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold has shown me he's a franchise quarterback. Chris chimes in. We'll all talk about this terrible defense. How the hell do we have the NFL sack leader in Burns? He's had an all-pro season. He's played really, really well, and he's played with passion, and he's played with substantial amount of fight. Robert Packers fan chimes in. Q, unbelievably bad loss, not only to the Carolina Panthers yesterday, but now we lose our best tight end. Yeah, torn ACL. Yep. Packers got some problems, man. They got some problems. I will accept this man up. Manolo approved. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a while, Q. Want to start with respect for your boy Dart. He looked like a leader. Wish my Browns could have a guy like that. Scotty boy, good to hear from you, brother. He's a player, man. The kid can play. I mean, but I worry with young quarterbacks that have that swagger and that edge and that chip and that juice that you have a head coach that's not doing right by you. And I'm not going to sit here and say Brian Dable's not trying. He's just not a good head coach. And if you guys remember that were following me a couple years ago, I wasn't enamored by the hire. I love the fact that he went for two on the road to open up the season against the Titans. I was like, okay, we've been missing that. You want an aggressive coach. And they were able to make the playoffs and go on the road and win a playoff game against Minnesota. But somewhere along the way, that coach, that style, it went away. There was no more being aggressive. There was no more fourth down calls. There was no more putting players in position to make plays. It was a lackluster offense. The defense couldn't stop anyone. The GM, they had bad, horrible Kenny Golladay, horrible signings. The tight end Waller, horrible acquisitions and signings. It's malpractice. Now you get to the point where you're like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. The Giants have become the Jets. They become the Browns. They become what Jacksonville used to be. They became what the Tampa Bay Bucks back in the day used to be. Bad, poorly run franchises. You can't tell me every season 2-7, 2-8, 2-7, 2-8, 2-7, 2. That's going to enamor a fan base. That's going to appeal to a fan base. That's going to appeal to potential free agents. Come on, man. No, no. Uh, Who will be the brave team to fire their coach first and get one first dibs on the hot coach hire? Say Stefanski gets fired after they lose to the Jets by 13. Man says there's one caveat to Shanahan and Niners. There's a winning atmosphere for the most part there. Building Lynch and Shanahan. Yeah, 100%. That's exactly it. That's called a winning culture. A winning culture. You said it. You said this before, Q. It's a win now league. Coaches and GMs panic and move on quickly. You're right. I don't know how. I understand you got to win. I understand you have to win. It is about wins in the NFL. It is. It really is. But man, I think in hindsight, some of these guys look around and you gave them truth serum. I'm wondering if they're saying to themselves, we pulled the plug too quick. on some of these quarterbacks. We pulled the trigger too fast on some of these quarterbacks. 5:15 on a Monday edition of On Cue as we welcome in our good friend Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 1029 FM, the game at Lloyd Vance. Yeah, my aggravation. I mean, again, I don't even know like where to start with what happened yesterday in the NFL. Let's go with the big news coming out of DC, and that's the injury, horrible injury to Daniels. I mean, that kid's done for the season. So I know it's a Monday. I know we do the instant knee jerk reaction, but if you're Dan Quinn, there's no way you have that kid in there late in the game when you're down 38-7.
Yeah, Q. I did an appearance earlier today in a show down in DC area, and I was saying the same thing. The score is 38-7. The game was out of hand right away. It's 28-0, blink of an eye. And why put your most valuable offensive player out there in a meaningless point in the game?
Franchise
He had
quarterback.
no chance of winning it. Everybody's going to whisper RG3 and talk about his frame, and he can't take the hits, etc. But you know, the coach shouldn't have put him in that situation. And Q, now you're wondering, you're like, okay, can he come back from this? Where does Washington go from here? And they have a lot of holes on that team that you have to fill. And you thought quarterback was where you're going to be, set for the next at least 4 to 5 years.
And that's the other thing. You got a quarterback that is off injured, and again, now he's showing he's a little fragile. Look, Commanders are cooked, period. But I just think that's a move that's malpractice, man. That's a fireable offense when you have a franchise quarterback out there. It's like even with the Giants, with these design runs and options for Jackson Dart taking a substantial amount of hits. I mean, it just these coaches, I just don't understand. Like what I know the pushback I'll get from that is like Madman comment, you have to win games. You have to give the appearance you're trying. There's a difference between trying and being smart about trying. And in that situation last night, knowing your quarterback's taken a substantial amount of hits, knowing your quarterback's already been sacked 5 or 6 times, knowing he's somewhat brittle, knowing that the season's pretty much lost, under no circumstances do you have him out there at a 38-7 game. You can't. I mean, if Andy Reid did that with Patrick Mahomes, or McDermott did it with Josh Allen, or Harbaugh with Lamar Jackson, I mean, we'd be going nuts today. They would be calling for those head coaches' heads.
Right. And we're not sure if it's Dan Quinn or if it was Adam Peters in the GM seat. But Joshua Harris, who's now the owner of this team, he's got to pull this thing together. And Q, it was egregious. It's a situation where all the wishes and everything, best behavior from last year was a magic carpet ride, and everybody had all the accolades, and they thought, okay, we're going to run this thing back in Washington, and we'll be right there again in the NFC Championship game. Well, guess what? It has not worked out. I always talk to you about every season's different, and teams change, teams adjust that are playing you, and that's what we're seeing with Washington. And now they have a lot to worry about and change, and it starts with that offensive line and an aging defense they really need to look at.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I had them coming out of the NFC. It has not been their season. Joe chimes in. Q, did you guys give any more thought to what Jackson's Dart's dad said? This was just sent to me, that I guess he's obviously not happy with the kid taking a lot of hits, but it just goes deeper. And I don't want to spend. I opened up. I don't want to spend too much on the Giants, but I'll just say this: you got a franchise legit quarterback. What I saw rewatching the game today, Lloyd, was defensive players really start to make those executive business decisions, and when that happens, you have to get rid of the head coach. And the fact that this defensive coordinator, there was a stat that I heard over the last 17 or 18 opposing drives, when the opposition has the football, they've allowed like 14 touchdowns, a missed field goal, and one kneel down. Like, you just, do you keep the GM? You clean house. I don't want this head coach near this quarterback, to be quite honest. I just don't. You know how I felt about him. I wasn't enamored by the hire. I wasn't a big fan of Dayball, but now it's to the point where when players quit and you've got stadiums, piling out in the third quarter or early in the fourth, and they're overrun by 49ers or Cowboys fans or Eagles fans, that's when ownership has to look and say, we need to make a change right now.
Yeah, John Mayer and the Tisch family, they have to look at this too. They brought everybody back. They said, okay, Shane, Dayball will give you one more chance, but it has not worked out. And I heard you before I came on, 7-2, and then 3 straight 2-7 starts. You know what I mean? To begin these seasons, and nothing's going to change. You know what I mean? They're expecting Dayball to be that offensive guru that he was with the Bills and the Magic Elixir. It just has not worked. And then you talk about Jackson Dart. I think he's going to be a pretty good young dynamic quarterback, but you couldn't ruin the kid, with bad coaching and also play calling. You don't want your young quarterback to get hit too many times. And yeah, it may work and you may win some games, but look at Cam Newton. I mean, he was beat up. And, by the end of his tenure with the Carolina Panthers, that shoulder from taking so many hits just wasn't the same. So, yeah, I do think they are going to pull the trigger, and eventually you'll see a full house cleaning, GM and head coach here.
Yeah, and the other thing is, can you get guys that actually can catch the friggin' football? Like quarterbacks get let down a lot by their so-called playmakers. And you look around the NFL, the Higgins, the Chases, the Jeffersons, the Browns, the Smiths. These guys make plays, man. They want the football in their hands, and it's lacking in New York. Scott chimes in. So was the Colts' loss to the Steelers defense figuring them out, or was it just matchup? What did we say? Look at the Colts. Indiana Jones. Don't revert back to Danny Nichols, right? And now the fumble, I've seen it. The deer in the headlights look, I've seen it. The one ball, not his fault, was kind of tipped okay. The other pick bad, but all the good, the build up equity, and then they go and they get clipped by the Steelers. Was yesterday an aberration? You're allowed to lose a game in the NFL, come back down to life a little bit, or are you kind of bracing if you're Colts Nation right here? Okay, here it comes. You're going to start to get the poor play. I just think, to Scott's point, the Steelers just matched up well. They jumped out to the lead. The Colts had to play behind. That's something they haven't been accustomed to this season because they've been blowing the doors off teams, and it was a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a combination of things there, but I think the biggest thing probably was the Steelers had a game plan for the Colts. I mean, they made sure they kind of sat back in the zone, and then they brought their blitz. And then the way Watt and Highsmith were bringing that pressure along with Hayward, they were just making Jones uncomfortable back there. And then the biggest thing, we talked about the dominance of Jonathan Taylor last week. They almost shut him down in this game. He did not have the rush lanes. And then you put it on the shoulders of Daniel Jones. And who is he at this point, Q? Is he the MVP candidate, or is he the guy left over from the Giants? So we'll see. But it was a statement game, and the Colts kind of came up short in that situation.
Yeah, listen, I thought Pittsburgh, they're just not flashy, but you're winning games. It doesn't matter if you win games ugly, if you blow out teams, it doesn't matter. Like, I think right now, so we saw what Buffalo was able to do, right? And I know, Mahomes was pissed after a game. If it's any other quarterback, we're killing him too. Mahomes hugging Allen, saying terrible, terrible, talking about the pick, the tip pass that was, tipped, and they're calling it offensive ground. Look, sometimes it's nice that the calls don't go Kansas City's ways, but at the end of the day, I thought yesterday Buffalo did what they needed to do, and that was run the football first and foremost, right? For the most part, harass Mahomes, which they did, and shut down a ground game that started to pick up over the last several weeks. And listen, no Pacheco, and I know we were talking about where we thought the ground game would be during BYP last week, so obviously Kareem Hunt had to pick up the slack, but they only averaged 4 yards a carry, which on the surface is good. But conversely, they didn't have a lot of, long runs. And then you look at Buffalo, they had runs of 17, 13, 16. They ran for $141. Allen made the plays with his legs and his feet. Kansas City's 5-4, Buffalo's 6-2. I know Bills Nation, Bills Mafia, they got a seat in the postseason. I understand, but I thought that was a statement game by Buffalo, and I also thought it kind of knocked Kansas City back down to reality. I mean, how many years have we said Kansas City after 9 games is 5-4?
Not many I can remember, not with Andy Reid being there, Q. And it's a situation where right now they're on the outside looking in. If the playoffs start today, the Kansas City Chiefs would be the 8th seed, and they'd be watching everybody. So they have a lot of work to do. Don't forget, Denver is 7-2 at this point. Yes, the Chiefs do play them later in the season, week 17, but they, I don't know if they're going to be close enough to catch them. And then you look at the other side of it, the Bills, that was a statement win for them, Q. They did a great job in terms of pressuring Mahomes, pressured him about 15 times in this game, and he did not look comfortable in the pocket, had an interception. There was a fumble as well. So a big win for them. But as always with that rivalry, the playoff games, all it's going to matter if they play each other. But could you imagine if KC does get in, they may be the road team every time they play in playoffs?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a very good point. I was trying to decipher who had the biggest win over the weekend, right? The Steelers over the Colts. Was it the Bills? Seattle is a sleeper team coming out of the NFC. And then my sneaky Carolina Panthers team, which I told you was going to be a playoff team this year. I told you don't sleep on them, even though they frustrate the hell out of me. I thought that was a great win. Is that more of what's going on with Green Bay? And obviously they lose their tight end, or do you see something here with Carolina?
Well, Carolina is a scrappy team, Q, and that's what we talked about. And Bryce Young didn't really do a lot. He passed for
No, he
102
didn't.
yards in this game. The big thing was the defense just did a nice job, kept them in the game. They were a 13-point underdog in that
Yep.
game. But they went to Green Bay, a place where everybody says you can't win. And they took it to them, particularly rushing the football. Dowdell did a great job in terms of rushing it. They had 166 rushing yards and a 4.9 yard per carry, Q. So they were controlling the offensive line, and they're a physical team. So they may sneak in there, as you were saying, get that sixth spot, the seventh spot into the playoffs. I don't think they'll win the division, but yeah, they are improving in Carolina.
Listen, you go on the road and you beat Green Bay. A lot of people think they're a Super Bowl contender. The Packers, that is a nice franchise win. And we talk about building the culture. And I didn't even mention Minnesota yesterday. Minnesota goes on the road, divisional matchup, and I thought McCarthy played well. I thought they ran the ball a little bit. I thought Detroit looked out of sync, but Minnesota got a big win. I mean, that's listen, it's a log jam right now in the NFC. And then I know I've said this several times, but man, I get more impressed watching Drake May and this New England team. I really do.
Yes, they're in Vrabel's image, and they're tough. They're no nonsense. You have Travion Henderson come in there this week and step into the running back position. And Drake May is a young, dynamic player and a leadership guy. You're seeing Diggs get involved now. You start making some plays. And then the defense, a lot of people say, yeah, they're no names, but they still have Christian Gonzalez and they have Milton Williams, and they're making plays. So Q, yes, they're leading the division for a reason, and they've already beaten the Buffalo Bills. I'm really looking forward to that end of the season matchup, as I was saying, in week 15 in New England with those two teams.
Question for Lloyd. If coaches aren't developing guys, as Brady said, then what are NFL coaches actually doing? Head coach, coordinator, make game plans. So what is the tight end, DB, wide receiver coach doing? It's a great question because I was just talking about coaching in the NFL and kind of the lapse with some of these guys. And I think different teams, and I'll obviously let you answer this, are different. It depends on who's like Belichick never cared about the offense. He was more concerned about the defense, but he hired guys that he knew can handle the offense. It doesn't hurt when you had, some all-time greats, i.e. a Tom Brady. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the position coaches, as the question to answer in there, are important, Q. And different organizations go about it different ways. I've seen guys hire their cronies, put somebody on their staff that could even be their brother-in-law or somebody like that.
Yep.
Or they're getting a teaching guy. And I covered the Eagles for a long time, and they always had really good position coaches underneath Andy Reid. The guys that became head coaches, Sean McDermott was the linebackers coach at one time. You had John Harbaugh, who was the DB's coach. And at practice, I would watch them, and they were actually teaching techniques to these guys. Now, some guys may brother-in-law, some of these position groups, but I think for the most part, these guys are trying to teach these guys and make them get better. And you're seeing a lot of them, some flow into the college ranks now, and they're teaching them down there. And then it's that continuous learning when they get to NFL.
Yeah, and let's not discount too special teams, right? And it was very prevalent in that Pittsburgh game. Now, granted, they forced 6 turnovers in that 27-20 win over Indianapolis, but you saw the special teams guru, Danny Smith, that lived about 10 houses down from me back in the day. Well-traveled Danny Smith, all over the place, football lifer. When you're talking about these kickoffs and where to position the ball and not give up that that yardage when we talk about the landing zone and all this. I mean, that's just smart, sound football, right? It's just smart, sound football. Ira chimes in. Q. Jones did go 31 of 50 for 342. Yeah, but it's the picks, right? It was the turnovers, and again, he could not secure the football, and I've seen that way too much. And when the pass rush was in his face, he made mistakes. But listen, they're going to rebound. But my point is, to the question in your answer, when you have a good coaching staff and you have both sides of the ball in special teams, that's key. I do want to ask you. You said one of the coaches on the hot seat coming into the season was Taylor in Cincinnati. Did yesterday at all make you say, okay, you have to turn around and something's got to be done here?
Well, Q, last year they kind of blamed it on the defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. He left town, and then they bring in Al Golden from Notre Dame, the former Temple head coach, and that defense is just not playing well for Cincinnati. That's 2 straight weeks where they allowed, I think, over 35 points. They scored, what? They 39-38 last week, and this week they score a ton.
How about the points in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, and they still, 47-42. So they're scoring a ton of points, and they made NFL history because scoring all those points and still losing, it just has not happened, and they cannot stop anybody. And yeah, so if they don't, Mike Brown, we know he doesn't like paying coaches that aren't on his payroll, but it's going to be something they have to look at because Taylor, I know they kept Marvin Lewis there forever, and Mike Brown doesn't like change guys, but yeah, something's amiss with the Bengals, and we obviously know it all centers around Burrow's injury, and the team's just going down the drain from there.
They gave up 48 to Minnesota, 28 to Denver, 37 to the Lions, 27 to Green Bay, 21 to the Steelers, a game they won, 39 to the Jets, and 47 to the Bears. They're as bad as the Giants defense. Well, the Giants defense might be the worst in the NFL statistically. It is a madman. The answer to your question is no, but we will let you know. How are the Chargers feeling after that type of win with what they're missing, or what aren't they doing well to keep them from being considered a contender? I think, didn't Alt go down again yesterday?
Yeah, so injuries have been a big problem on that offensive line. They had already lost their left tackle to begin the season, and then they slid John Alt over, and then he gets banged up. They're hanging in there, but this was a shaky game. I know I told one of my buddies to take the Chargers as his survivor pick, and Tennessee was hanging in this game, and for a little while it looked like the Chargers may go down, but Herbert did a nice job in the end and had made some key throws, and Gadsden's really come along at the tight end position. So they're holding down the fort defensively, but those injuries are going to be tough. And then you talk about divisionally, that's where you got to look with them. Can they overcome Denver and Kansas City? And there's going to be some key games coming up with those teams, and we'll kind of get our answer on all 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad Scott brought it up. Denver, my Denver Broncos, and Bo Nix, my Super Bowl champ, right? I guess the same can be said for Denver, although defense is pretty good. Defense is good. They got to run the football a little better. And is Sean Payton? I mean, where are you at with Sean Payton? Do you think this is a fit, him and Bo Nix?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Q. It may not be him and Drew Brees. How much they had that love fest going, and but they got to figure out how to work together. We know he didn't want Russell Wilson there, and he has his young quarterback, and they're winning games. They're stringing them together, but sometimes these games are too close for comfort. And it's much like the Chiefs last year, Q. Like, all right, they're winning these games, but you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So Denver, quality wins. I really like their defense. They'll get Surtain back eventually. But yeah, that was a good win, and they took care of business against a Texans team that's kind of falling apart.
Right now, best team in the NFC.
The Philadelphia Eagles, and it's crazy, cute. They did not play.
Oh, come on, that's what I'm
And
saying. Come on, man.
hey,
Really?
their record says what they are, and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who are underneath them. So I put the Eagles there, and then the Seattle Seahawks and the Buccaneers at the top of the
How
NFC.
about the
But
Rams?
the Rams, yes, but the Eagles beat them too, Q.
Yeah, I'll come. Yeah, but I mean, come on.
I know it was a tip field goal and all that stuff and all that, but they found a way to beat them. And right now they're the champs, and some people may say, oh, he's a Philly home or whatever. But I just think right now, the way they're playing and they're getting healthy from their bye week, we'll see how they come out against Green Bay, which is a huge game. We'll really see if they're for real or not. But right now I put the Eagles at top spot in the NFC.
By the way, the Chargers lost both their starting offensive tackles, right? Alt and Slater. Apparently, their season-ending injuries. That's what the mothership, the rat ship, is reporting. I think Seattle can go into Philly, man. I want Sam Darnold to go on the road and win a friggin' playoff game. I don't know why. Seattle did something that teams don't do. They basically in the NBA, it's very hard to do this. When you are a middle of the pack team in the NBA, you're stuck in purgatory. 6th seed, 7th seed, 8th seed. Maybe you win 43 to 48 games. Maybe you might win 50 in a stacked conference. You're not going to get out of the first or second round. If you look what Seattle has been over the last several years, they were kind of a middling playoff team, were they not? And they decide we're going to blow it up. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're about 10-7. They made it in 1 year, 10-7. Then they
yeah,
didn't get
but think about the players they jettisoned, right? And now what they're doing, I mean, look at these kids that he was throwing the friggin' football to last night. Now, I don't think you can be a diehard football fan, but if I said to you, "Oh, okay," I mean, obviously, Jackson Smith, right? JSN stud. But if I sit there and say Cody White, Tony Horton, here's a who. We want to know who the hell these guys are. Elijah Arroyo, AJ Barner, like who the hell are these guys? And Sling and Sammy's throwing it all over the place. So I love what Seattle's doing.
No, I do, and the big question is, can Sam Darnold overcome, his past failures and and the Eagles look. Jalen Hurts is playing at a higher level than Sam Darnold this time. Now, I do like the way that McDonald's arranged that Seattle defense. They're getting after people. They have 3 levels that can play really well with Jones and then that secondary. So I'll still stick with. I'll go Eagles, Tampa Bay, then Seattle.
Listen, I'm not going to take anything away from, and yes, the Rams need a look. I'm not going to take anything away from what the Eagles are doing and have done. I'm not. And obviously, they made a couple moves trade wise, shoring up the defense. But I watched Seattle, to me, runs the ball consistently. And that opens up a lot for Sam Darnold. The Rams can run the ball and they can do it consistently. They can get to the quarterback too. And Stafford's slinging it. I guess my one fear with the Eagles is, okay, you woke up against a poor run defense in the Giants. Now, if you come back and you can't run the ball successfully, say against Green Bay, then we're right back where we started from. Like, what's your identity? Do you want to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands 28 to 33 times a game? or do you want to have a balanced ground attack and an offense? And I haven't seen them really have that balance. Now, maybe they're going to hit their stride. This is not hating; it's just me giving my opinion. They're a playoff team. They're running away with the NFC East. I mean, they should be able to get home field advantage. But I believe these other teams that I mentioned, they're right there, and I think we're overlooking some of these teams because of maybe who the quarterback is, or who the quarterback isn't. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and we're going to get our answer with the Eagles. Their schedule, it's tough. So they're at Green Bay in Week 10. They have Detroit Week 11, Chicago, who's hanging around. They're Week 13. They have Chargers Week 14, and then they have a couple big. We thought Washington would be big. Obviously, those games they should win. But Week 17, they're at Buffalo, so they're going to have some tests. The Rams, they're inconsistent though. Sometimes they have some losses on their resume, and I think they'll hang around. So, and we talked about when they barely lost the Eagles, they had no fear going into the Lincoln Financial Field. So maybe that would be a good rematch, from the divisional round last year.
How about this sleeper pick? Got the Bears winning the division. If the defense can get better, I know it's bold, but Williams has been pretty good. You know what's interesting about that comment? That the Bears in years past have had games that you would sit there and say, that's a typical Bears loss, right? Last year, the Washington Hail Mary. But then this year, they come back and they have no business beating Washington. And what happens? They beat Washington. You know, they had no business winning that game yesterday. What happens? They won the game. Aside from the Baltimore game, the Lions, they gave up 52 points. The Vikings was the first game of the season. I'm still trying to figure them out right now, but the division is kind of stacked. And they've got a winnable game coming up against the Giants, a revenge game on the road against Minnesota, Pittsburgh, that again is going to be fighting for that AFC North. Then they go on the road against the Eagles and Green Bay. Two tough spots, at home against Cleveland, at home against Green Bay, on the road against the 49ers, at home against the Lions. My point is, if the Bears get to the playoffs, they have definitely earned it, because that's a tough little stretch.
It is, and we want to get answers in terms of Caleb Williams. His
Yep.
consistency. And he's still running around a little too much, trying to make plays for my taste. And the defense though is they're scrappy. They get turnovers. Their running game, even though Swift's banged up a little bit, is still making plays. So yeah, the Bears, they're in the mix, but you really want to see who Green Bay is and Detroit. That's such a tough division. I think three teams are going to make the playoffs out of NFC North.
How about the AFC, right? I mean, did Buffalo show you, okay, come talk to me come playoff time? I mean, it is kind of unique, the AFC this year, right? Because New England's 7-2, they've won 6 straight. Pittsburgh has a big win. The Colts have a bad loss. Denver has won 6 straight. But if you look at that division right now, it's kind of a log jam between them, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. I mean, 1-2 punch right now in the AFC. Who are your most complete teams right now?
Ooh, I thought I was going to say the Colts before this weekend, but I still believe that it was a bad loss. They got to shake it off, and they have a big game coming up, Week 12. They're at Kansas City, which really is going to tell us a lot about Daniel Jones. But yeah, I put them in my hierarchy right now. New England, we've been talking about them too. I thought, they'd be a nice story that could, but they may win that division. That Sunday Night Football win over the Bills showed me a lot. Denver with their defense, I'll put them in there. And then the Bills obviously have jumped back into the mix. That loss though at Atlanta was ugly. They can't play like that and think they're going to be one of the top teams. So I put all them at the top of the AFC right now.
You got Monday Night Football. Interesting. Marvin Harrison Sr. came out and basically said, I don't like Arizona's offense. You can quote me on that. Well, I mean, there's a sentiment right now that we talked a lot about Miami moving on from Tua, even though Mike McDaniel said we're not going to bench him. There's some thought right now that Arizona is looking to move past Kyler Murray.
Yeah, Kyler Murray. The teardown may be coming Q in Arizona. This is a big game. I know it's Dallas, and both teams are kind of downtrodden, but this is a big game for the Cardinals. If they get embarrassed, Jonathan Gannon, the hot seat's going to get any hotter. And we talk about going into the season, he's one of them guys that may not make it. So this is going to be an interesting situation for them. But yeah, the Cardinals, it's not looking good, and they play better underneath Jacoby Brissett. Q.
Is Murray a bust? I mean, he's been in the league 7 years. He's a first overall pick. Um, I know he's questionable tonight. I mean, if he plays and he balls out, that's a good opportunity to kind of silence some people. But um, the other thing is they haven't now. Again, follow me on this one. I just pulled up his status is questionable. Is it possible that they're toiling with the idea of trading him?
They could be Q, but I just don't see the market being big for Kyler Murray. He's just too inconsistent, and he's smallish. A lot of people don't want a quarterback that small, and that was a big thing when he was drafted number one overall. Could he take the hits in the National Football League and see? He can't see over the line a lot of times. A lot of passes are tipped. He's gotten hurt running, and yeah, that question of whether he's a bust is very it's fair in my opinion. Q.
So he is 9-0 lifetime, 9-0 lifetime win streak in AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, in
Um,
high school and
yep,
college, won a
yep.
lot.
So right, the question is he healthy? Is he injured again? Is the new plan to trade him? Right, the deadline's coming up. It's tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Um, is it a contingency plan? I mean, they're reporting that Brissett is going to get the start, but you have to go by the um, status report, so to speak. I mean, there are teams out there. I mean, look.
Yeah, he makes a
And
lot
let
of
me ask
money.
you a question. Let me ask you this: is Kyler Murray better than Bryce Young and/or Cam Ward right now?
Well, just on experience, you'd say that, but Cam Ward could probably grow into a better quarterback than him. Bryce Young, I'm not that high on, but yeah,
Would you
Kyler
trade
Murray's
him
had 7 years.
as a backup though? With the idea that he's a backup is my point.
Who? Kyler?
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he makes too much money at like $46 million per for that Q. So wherever he goes, he's going to have to be a starter, and then Carolina's going to have to work out some of the money. So I just think that'll prohibit this trade being done. But I can't see him as a backup either. Q. He seems like a type of guy that wants to be on the field and get it done. And we've heard this in the past from like guys like Cam Newton. They said, well, he starter or nothing. I just can't see him carrying a clipboard.
Cleveland needs a quarterback.
Yeah, but that'd be interesting. Cold weather. He's got small hands. Black and blue AFC
Yeah, but
North.
yet he was drafted number one overall.
Yeah, it's more looking more and more like a reach, and he may have been a product of basically that run and shoot offense with that Oklahoma was running. He had huge stats and everything, but it just shows, as I always say, the NFL is a lot harder than college. A lot of these college quarterbacks, they're just running around, relying on the talent around them, and they're not doing their homework in the National Football League.
Yeah, Scott points out he hasn't shown enough at all. Listen, I know these are. I think sometimes you get to a point where I don't really put anything past any franchises now, right? And guys get moved. I believe two is done in Miami. I believe Murray is going to be done in Arizona. I believe Cincinnati's moving on from Taylor. I still believe Cleveland is going to fire that head coach and GM. I also believe the Giants are going to clean house. This is what happens in the NFL when you
Yes.
don't win or you can't evaluate talent properly. Now, I don't know if you caught this, but I mentioned this early on. The Jets give up on Sam Darnold, and he's 23.
Yeah,
Like,
they're coming into the league younger and younger, Q, and a lot of these quarterbacks are not prepared, and sometimes it's better if they sit and learn. Look how Green Bay does it, with Jordan Love. If they put him out there year one, he would have been a disaster. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And as always, there's going to be 7 new jobs every year. You know what I mean? there's going to be 7 new head coaches, and then a lot of these quarterbacks are going to these head coaches want their own guy, and then these guys will be on the market.
So let's see. New England fine, Buffalo fine, Aaron Glenn last. Miami, you believe will make a head coaching change?
Yes, correct. And the only thing is there, Tua, that contract, they're married to him.
Albatross.
Yes.
Okay, so we got one right there. Pittsburgh, no. Baltimore, no. Even though you could start having a conversation about Harbaugh. I'm just saying.
Bashotti,
I
and
know, I know, I know.
like him, so I don't.
Cincinnati, yes.
I'll say yes there because Taylor, they're just limping home, and they're hoping for Burrow to come back in December. I don't think he comes back.
All right, Cleveland, yes.
Stefanski's definitely on a hot seat, and then you can throw Andrew Barry in there. Too many head scratching moves at GM.
So you got 3 right there. Titans need a head coach unless they rip the interim tag. That's 4.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, McCoy's an interim, but they're gonna bring their own guy in there. Arthur Smith, watch for him there. His father's from Tennessee. He's the head of FedEx. So yeah, I think he may be a fit there.
Denver, Chargers, Chiefs, no. Pete Carroll probably has a little buyer's remorse, but anyway. Giants, yes. That's 5.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
I'm trying to think where else. Green Bay, no. Detroit, no. Chicago, no. Minnesota, no, because they want to see
Yeah.
the head coach work with a young quarterback. I mean, what am I missing here? Seattle, no.
Yeah. I mean, you could could Kellen Moore be a one and done with the Saints the way they've been getting
Who?
embarrassed? Kellen Moore with the Saints.
Yeah, but he to me, I didn't like the hire in the first place. He's a coordinator. He's not a head coach.
Yeah, so that's an area you got to watch. Houston, D'Amico Ryans, the bloom is off the rose there, Q, and you have
Yeah,
Stroud that got banged up again. They're very inconsistent. So
that's a fair point, man. That's actually a very good example you bring up because I think we kind of fell in love with D'Amico Ryans and Stroud after that first year, and they went back to the playoffs, but they've kind of regressed. What about Gannon?
Oh, Jonathan Gannon, definitely Q. He was on my hot sit list before the season started, and they just can't get it done. It's particularly his calling card is defense, and the Cardinals' defense has never been able to stop anybody. They brought Sweat over from the Eagles, but other than that, they have not done a lot with that defense. So yeah, Gannon, I definitely would throw in there.
I mean, this is not even reading the room. You guys ever notice the H in hosted by Rich Quinones up there on the right isn't bold, but all the other letters are?
What? It's crazy.
It's Evie Mucks, man. I don't know why you guys have to pinpoint,
Listen to the content.
Yeah, exactly. Read the friggin' room. Trained eye, man. Definitely the Saints. Yeah, so you're looking at 5 or 6, and then that goes into, well, what do you do? Some of these GMs, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's up with some of these franchises.
In the past, it was always like, oh, GM's there for at least 5 years guaranteed. Well, they're pulling the plug quick on these guys too. You saw the Titans do it. Ran Carthon. They brought Bergonzi in there. We just saw down in Miami, they get rid of Chris Greer, who had been with the organization like 10 years. They get him out of there. So, yeah, they're holding their feet to the fire as well. And it all depends on the owner, too. Some of these owners like continuity, and they like giving these guys, a chance to right the ship. But some of the other ones, they're ready to pull the trigger.
G-Man chimes in. Q, Bowen barely blitzed Mac Jones yesterday, even though Jones has the worst quarterback rating under pressure in the NFL. I don't effing understand this. It does not make sense. This defense has gone back and forth. They've been shorthanded, but the front four wasn't getting any pressure on Jones. So no matter how shorthanded they are, you have to look at the scheme. Change it up. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know what more. Like at this point, I don't believe the head coach is going to get fired during the season. And they can win 6 straight games. I don't believe his job is safe. I believe they will clean house after this season, but it's just without belaboring the point or beating, the point home. When does when does it end, right? Like when does the madness end? Um, the cycle, right? You look at some of these franchises that haven't been able to figure it out. I'm glad Man now he's getting back to reading the room and the train eye. This is a good comment. Sometimes my mind wanders. I think Cam Warren will be great once he leaves Tennessee. They drafted him. Now you look at this situation. Is this a Darnold situation where maybe the Titans give up on this kid so fast he bounces around, then he finds a home somewhere?
No, I think that all the scouts I talked to said that he has the material to build around. And let's face it, this situation where this coaching staff is just a mess. I know Mike McCoy's trying to clean things up, but Tennessee, they just got too many problems, and they need to go back into the draft, build that roster up. And it's tough place because not a lot of free agents like to come there. And the Adams family, they kind of inherited the team from their dad who died. So, ownership doesn't have those deep pockets. So they're going to have to build through the draft queue. So it's going to be on Barganzi, who's the GM there, to kind of find the right guys to pull that situation together. So, yeah, I think they give him a chance, though.
Let me close you out on this. Here we go. Does this put Bill Belichick back in the league? I mean, some of these teams, like I don't foresee the Giants going out and grabbing a guy like Gruden, even though Gruden's salivating over Dart, because um, the whole mess with the Raiders and the emails, and I just don't think the Giants want that kind of PR hit, and that's a retread. And I'm not saying Belichick isn't a retread, but I like the line of thinking. Scott's thinking is you bring in a proven guy who knows how to work with young quarterbacks, can handle a defense, and that gives your franchise a little juice, a little buzz. When we mention some of these teams, now Man still believes no, owners are done with him. I still, in my heart of hearts, his name will be thrown out there when these head coaches get fired because he's one and done in UNC. I mean that's you again. That's you can take that to the bank, as they said in a Seagal movie. He's done. He's absolutely done.
Yes, it's an ugly situation in college. I didn't ever thought that was going to work because it's just such a different league there in college and compared to the pros. And
And I don't care that he beat Syracuse, by the way. But go ahead.
yeah, and he's going to get his chances. You know what I mean? Somebody may come to him, but he's going to have to. Belichick's got to go in there and humble himself and sell himself to any of these NFL owners that want to bring him in. If he's going to go in there and try to dictate, I'm going to be the GM and I'm picking all the players and those days are over. He's going to have to work with probably a younger GM and definitely build a team. But definitely, I think some of these owners would grab him just to make a splash.
All right, are you on tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to be on tonight, 8 o'clock to 9:15. Kevin and I will be on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Definitely join us. We will recap Week 9. We'll preview Week 10, talk about all the news and notes. Tomorrow's a trade deadline, obviously. We'll talk a little of that, and we'll go from there.
All right, we're going to try to maybe do a little rapid one tomorrow. We'll see scheduling pan out, but we'll definitely check you out tonight. As always, I always appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. Love when Lloyd comes on. Check him out. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football does a fantastic job. Give him a follow on social media. Belichick will only go to a team on the cusp. Which one would you believe is your best bet? That's a good question. Is it true Q and Vance kidnapped Angel? No. Angel's, I think he's at the University of South Florida, one of the basketball games. By the way, what you guys think of the World Series? Phenomenal. Phenomenal. That series changed. I mean, there were probably, you had such back and forth drama in game 7. It was unbelievable. And, I know Toronto is steaming from a couple things, but I still maintain man, you got to run through. You got to run through the bag at home plate. You have to run through. But they had so many unlikely scenarios for everything to play out. Dodgers don't take the lead until the 11th. They basically took all these, punches to the gut. Toronto, that World Series was there for Toronto. Listen, the double play that got him there, there's no game 7 if the Dodgers don't turn the double play that already held its own in Toronto sports infamy, right? You have runners on second and third, one out, and then Jimenez hits the fly ball to shallow. Kiki Hernandez catches on the run, fires to second, boom, they double up Barger. Um, Ohtani striking out Guerrero, right? The most absurd moment of that game, right? You take the mound in the first, and you go through the inning, you allow a leadoff single to Springer, manage to strike out Guerrero, and then Springer broke for second. And again, I don't get it. You kind of hesitate on your way there, thinking Guerrero had walked. I mean, that's unacceptable. The whole pulling Bo Bichette too. He had the big homer, right? He had the big homer. I still think you had to pull him because the kid couldn't run anymore. But that was a ridiculous, the 3-run shot off Ohtani. I mean, you had Yamamoto is a friggin' man. I mean, that dude, that is a foxhole, brother. I will go to you any time of the week. Foxhole, foxhole. You had the unsung heroes with the home runs and a couple, I mean, it was just unbelievable. Rojas, who, by the way, if you go back and you watch that one play, forget about tying it up in the 9th, which was unlikely hero. That his last hit was a homer back on September 19th. Dave Roberts, brilliant. Went with the gut. Kudos. Kudos. But the fact that when he backtracked to field it, didn't field it cleanly, that's when you have to run through home plate. You don't slide, man. You run through, sliding stops your momentum. And then Yamamoto was just unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. He had great starts in game 2 and 6. He threw 96 pitches in game 6. Dude wanted the ball. Then you got games. I mean, come on, man. Ugh. But the Rojas play was unbelievable. But you have to get a better lead off of third. And then obviously Will Smith getting jiggy with it. There have been 6 straight years a Will Smith, not the Fresh Prince, but a Will Smith has won the World Series. I thought it was a fascinating World Series. I did. I really did. I thought it was just unbelievable. I thought he was just unreal. It was just fascinating. The theatrics were unbelievable. Loved it. Belichick, Cincy. Ooh. I hope Dion doesn't go to Cleveland. I don't want that, but I would like to see his son play. I think Dion is clearly looking at other options after this season. Toronto has no reason to feel cheated. None. No. You talking about the ground ball or the fly ball that got stuck, right? None. They had so many opportunities to win this World Series. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. They had so many chances. They should have won game 7 different times. They couldn't move runners over. They couldn't move guys over, left runners on base. Yeah, they're going to be kicking themselves. Too many base runners left on base by the Blue Jays. That's their fault. I think Scherzer gave up the home run to Muncy. Was tough. That showed a spark. Yep. All right, 6:06 on a Monday. Let me get to a couple more comments. Monday Marcus chimes in. Q, would you rather lose the World Series by getting swept or the fashion in which the Blue Jays lost it? Oh, I'd rather get swept. I mean, game 7, and you had multiple chances to win, Game 5, Game 6. Well, I should really say Game 6 and Game 7. You get doubled up twice to close out 2 back-to-back World Series games. That's a great run by the Dodgers. I don't want to hear this crap about buying. I don't want to hear that shit. Yankees fans, do me a favor, shut up about buying championships, please, with the Dodgers. And I'm a Yankees fan. You can't talk. Just stop. You can't talk. It was a great postseason. You had a lot of drama, but the Dodgers showed you that they're a dynasty. They flat out showed you they are a dynasty. And man, the 18 inning games was just ridiculous. You had 11 runs, 1 walk off, epic. Epic. And listen, Toronto had a great run. I put this World Series up with the Yankees and Arizona Diamondbacks. 2001. I put it 2001 just because of the drama. I mean, think about this, right? Cardinals over the Rangers. That was a 7-game series in 2011. Boston swept Colorado in 2007. St. Louis 1-5, I think, over the Tigers. Forget about Houston and Atlanta a couple years ago. I'm looking at like classics. Like if you go back and you really look at these World Series, 6, 7 games, there's drama. And I think the 2001 was an unbelievable World Series. I mean, obviously, as a Yankees fan, it broke my heart. But you had 4 one-run games. You had, the hits in November, right? Senior November, Derek Jeter, Brocious, Brocious walk-off home run in Game 5. Gonzalez's bloop single, right, over Mo in Game 7. To me, it ranks right up there. And I thought, the Cubs over Cleveland, that was a 7-game series. That was fantastic. I thought this past World Series, you had so many unlikely heroes and drama and just gut check performances by players. It was unbelievable. I'm glad that I watched most of the series when I wasn't trying to sleep because I was exhausted. But going 7 games and then watching everything unfold in game 6 and 7, I thought it was fantastic. Really. I just, it's been an hour. Just want to make sure I didn't miss it. uh, age-old question. Arizona, New York was unreal. That was a phenomenal World Series. I mean, it had everything, right? And obviously the backdrop of 9/11. It was a great, great World Series. But this World Series was phenomenal. The ratings did outstanding for that Game 7. That's what you want. Game 7, NBA, NHL, doesn't matter, man. Major League Baseball, World Series at Game 7. Are you kidding me? It's the great stat. The Dodgers batted .203 in this World Series. They were outscored 34-26, and they still won. I mean, Mel chimes in, the Dodgers fan. Q gets substituted pinch run, wears a sliding glove, takes the worst lead ever, slides with his feet. Ha ha ha. Yeah, you run, run through it. Run through it. It was a great World Series. Fantastic. And the ratings were off the chart. I feel bad for Toronto. I really do, but I can appreciate what the Dodgers have accomplished. It's very rare, right? What do we got here? You guys are sending me Cowboys news. What'd they do? What did the Cowboys do? Is there talk about Crosby? Hold on, let's see. Everyone calm down. Trade deadline is tomorrow. What do we got here? Cowboys didn't make a move, did they really? No, they didn't make a move for Max Crosby. Get out of here with that stuff. I don't want to hear that. Let me see. Dallas Cowboys. See, no, that's not legit. You guys get suckered into fake accounts. Yeah, until I see it from credible sources. Apparently, they have a trade package in place for either Crosby or Miles Garrett. All right, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. It's not going to help them. I mean, they're not a playoff team, so it really doesn't matter, right? Steelers have released Benny Bishop. We told you about the Eagles' moves, obviously shoring up that defense. I don't know how active. Yes, bat under 201. That's crazy. Yankees in 63. In 1963, did they really? That's a nice pull. They also, who they beat that year in the World Series? They had to beat the Dodgers, right? Wow, that's a good pull by you. What did they bat in that World Series? 200 and still won? Wow. And think about that lineup that the Yankees had, right? Pepitone, you had Roger Maris, Frank Howard, right? Bobby Richardson, um, obviously Mickey Mantle on the downside of his career, Yogi, right? I mean, wow, that's crazy. Bat under 200 and win a World Series. Unbelievable. If you have a question, any sport, any series length, what's the one series that wasn't really good but had one moment or one game that made it legendary? Is there any? I think game sevens are special. Game sevens are special because they can really make or break careers. And it's hard. I mean, I've seen some game sevens where the Knicks have broken my heart against Miami, against the Bulls, against Reggie Miller and the Pacers. That's a good question. That is a really good question. I can't remember. Yeah, you know what? I can't really think of anything. If it's got to be, it's got to be at least 6 or 7 games, right? Like it's different. A Super Bowl, it's a one-off. A divisional round, it's a one-off. A wild card, it's a one-off. If that makes sense. Yeah, that's not bad. I don't know. I'd have to think. It's a good question. That's a really good question. One thing is clear. It was clear to see why these two teams were in the Fall Classic. Yeah, maybe not 63, but they mentioned it on the broadcast. Well, think about it. If that rotation was, if you're talking about the Dodgers right there, Sandy Koufax, Johnny Padres, and Don Drysdale. I mean, that's if you're going Dodgers wise, right? If you're talking the Yankees, Whitey Ford, right? I think Jimmy Bouton, Marshall Bridges, Whitey Ford. I think Ralph Terry. I know the catches were Yogi Berra, Jake Gibbs, Elston Howard was a catcher as well. I mean, imagine beating the Dodgers with that starting rotation I just named and then batting under 200. Crazy, right? I would say LeBron's block against Golden State, but that went 7 and was unreal. That was Kyrie Irving, by the way, had an unbelievable series. Jordan's right to left layup. They beat LA fairly easy. No, they beat LA. Actually, they beat LA in 5 games. And if you remember, that was the first trip to the finals for the Bulls. The Lakers dynasty was ending. The Lakers stole game 1. Sam Perkins hit a late 3. And they went up 1-0. And then the Bulls just basically railroaded them 4 straight and they won it in 5. That Bulls squad, right? Insane. Those 3 are legendary. Yeah, think about that. Think about that for a minute. You bat two. Well, no wonder they friggin' batted 203 against those guys. Johnny Pods, Drysdale, and I still believe one of the greatest pitchers of all time, Sandy Koufax, had to retire early because of arm injuries. And you still won a friggin' World Series? Ha! Crazy. Man, that's a good pull. Jordan moves were legendary. Yeah, man, all-time moment. Yeah, that was great. I remember Larry Bird in the 81 finals against the Rockets. You hear the guy said, get up, shoots it, follows his shot, and lays it in with the layup. Dr. J's dunk, rocking the baby to sleep against the Lakers. And they won that. They swept them. That was 83 Sixers. Remember Fo, Moses Malone? The only game they lost in that playoffs was against the Knicks. Yeah, Drysdale and Koufax were ridiculous. Jeter's play, right? Against Seattle. That was a ridiculous play. And I think that series, that went 5 games. Yeah, to me, postseason baseball is exciting. NBA playoffs are exciting. I think anytime you have a game 7, there's such high drama, especially in the NHL if the game goes to sudden death, right? Yeah, what a spectacular move, right? Women's lingerie or underwear. Come on, Marv. And he's still, an all-time great. Yeah, you get that drama. And watching that game the other night, if you weren't a fan of the Dodgers and Toronto, what made it such an epic series is that it was such high drama. You lost, if you're Toronto, you lost game 6 and game 7 back to back on double plays. On double play balls. You're a play or 2 away from winning a World Series. And I say this all the time, man. It doesn't matter to sport. This is why, again, you can never take for granted when you make the playoffs or you go to the Stanley Cup Finals or an NBA final. Or a Super Bowl. You never know when you're going to get back there. You never know. I mean, so many things had to break right in this series for the Dodgers late. P-Man chimes in. Q, what'd you think of that 4th and 17? Did you notice that the defense basically lagged on the play? Oh, you're talking about Kansas City against Buffalo? Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to get into the theories that are already floating around. That was just Mahomes running around, making a play, and, you had soft coverage. You had a gap in the secondary in the middle, and he makes the play. And that's what Patrick Mahomes does. That's what Kansas City does. That was a good game. That was a nice win by the Buffalo Bills. But I just don't, again, if you're a fan of the Bills, you got to have a little better awareness in a play like that, a 4th and 17. You just, oh, by the way, how about this? I know you guys asked me this question during the preseason. How about that kicker for Jacksonville? I feel like, that kid kicked a 68-yarder. And it's an oh, by the way moment yesterday. A little credit to him, manning up on him. These kickers now, someone's going to kick a 70-yarder. It's absolutely crazy how far these guys can kick. And then I saw 2 things yesterday that I haven't seen all season long. I saw a opening kickoff return in Cincinnati, because no one ever returns to kickoffs for a touchdown. And did you guys notice on the onside kick, it's almost like a little drop kick. You don't put it on the tee. I thought that was interesting as well. I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't seen anyone run one back. Dave chimes in. Q, I know you're talking a little baseball. How about my Braves getting a new manager? Yeah, Walt Weiss. How about that? Walt Weiss goes from bench coach and infield instructor, and now he's going to manage the Braves. Remember that Walt Weiss all-star rookie card? How about that, right? All right, let me get to one more comment. Franchise chimes in. Q, I thought it was a very good World Series. I wouldn't say it was one of the greatest ones, but Game 7, as you mentioned, always high drama. Yamamoto is an absolute beast. Yes. I'm going to say it's an all-time World Series. And that was an all-time Game 7. How do you not say that's not an all-time Game 7? Come on, guys. What are we doing here? All right, Monday Night Football. I don't really have a feel on the game tonight. The Cowboys are laying 3.5 at home. Cowboys got to start winning some football games, you Cowboys fan out there. And they've got 2 winnable ones before they have the Eagles. I will give you a very, very early look-ahead line just because that Green Bay and that Eagles game Monday night, right now the Lions dropped. It opened at 3.5 for Green Bay. Now they're laying 2.5. Extras in a game, 7, sign me up. Exactly. It was ridiculous high drama. And the 18-inning game, unbelievable. That's the, and I thought too, Smoltz and Joe Davis, they're like the synergy, the chemistry they have. I mean, Davis, I appreciate this. He was giving you little nuggets like 10 seconds before the pitch. It was amazing. It was really amazing. Talking about, I think Smoltz said, has a World Series game ever ended on a sack fly? And all of a sudden, Joe Davis is like, oh, yeah, 1923. I'm like, holy shit. They're really good. Smoltz is really, really good. And I think Davis is an exceptional play-by-play. He does an excellent job with the NFL, and he does a fantastic job with Major League Baseball. Really. I mean, the way they played off each other, and, he just had a couple moments to get in those little tidbits. It was fantastic. I just thought, well, yeah, yes, fantastic job, subtly pulling for the Dodgers. Yeah, I actually does he still? I thought he still did the Dodgers, and he called the game. He was objective as they come. I thought he was still, wasn't he? Is he still currently play-by-play of the Dodgers? Young guy too. Really does just a good job. I thought he was still play-by-play voice of the Dodgers, but I enjoy his calls. I really do. And I think he's a very good NFL. I haven't heard him too much on college basketball, but he does well. He does really well. He's very sharp. He's really, really sharp. And I like his personality. It's not too over the top, but it's it's no, he's very solid. He's very solid. Not sure, but he might be number 1 play-by-play guy at the moment. You know who's really good, but again, does the more or less manning the ship on the panel in baseball, and then obviously does lead play-by-play. But Burkhart, I think, is very good. You're not a Buck fan? Joe Buck, I think, was a very good baseball guy. I think when you have the right partner, and the chemistry, you play off each other where, baseball, you got to fill a lot of spots, right? Because it's a slower game. Football, though, you're pretty much always going to team up for, you'll have that all pro with you, right? Whether it's a quarterback like Nance and Romo, it just works. Burkhardt and Brady. Brady's starting to grow on me because Brady has a little more an opinion. Aikman always has an opinion, and Aikman and Buck have been together for years. I enjoy the broadcast. I like Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. I like Perico, but I like Al Michaels more, even though Al Michaels over the last several years, a lot of people think he's just kind of collecting a check. I mean, he's Al Michaels. He's a GOAT. He's getting up there in age. Al Michaels has called some of the biggest moments in sports history, so I kind of give him a pass. But I definitely like Joe Davis. All right, Got to start. How about this? 2 hours on a Monday and no Christina. Sorry, man. Got to start wrapping up. Excellent job with the comments. You guys hung for 2. You guys are the best. We might have a rapid fire edition of On Cue on a Tuesday. Appreciate Lloyd Vance jumping on board. We're going to try to track down a couple of guests later on in the week. As always, don't forget to get social with me. You got Monday Night Football tonight. NBA as well. We'll dive into that later in the week. A little more carryover with baseball. Start to look ahead to next season. A lot of players opting out for free agency. We'll have Steve Gardner on. And again, very, very busy week ahead. So keep it locked in. Don't forget to check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. Don't forget to also subscribe. Check us out on social media at Rich Q on Q, IG, X, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Want to say thank you to our sponsors as always. Fresh Roasted Coffee. Also, Played Against Sports, Get Ready with Tea, and Three Brooks Bourbon. You guys have a good sports Monday. Enjoying you guys hanging out for the past 2 hours on a Monday edition. As we like to say, hey, lunes Manolo Mentios, man up, Locador de Radio edition of On Cue. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. We will talk to you hopefully mañana. A little rapid fire edition of On Cue. Enjoy the Monday Night Football. We'll break everything down. We'll put a bow on the past weekend in the world of sports. And of course, later on in the week, we'll start to prep you for what's ahead in the weekend in the NFL and the NBA. So you guys have a good night. As always, be safe, be sound. Hasta luego, buen día.